On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. John Wayne, born Marion Morrison, died on June 11, 1979, from complications related to stomach cancer. He was 72. His death, while natural, followed a long and highly publicized battle with illness, beginning with a bout of lung cancer in 1964 that cost him a lung and several ribs. By the time of his final diagnosis in the late 1970s, Wayne had become a symbol not just of rugged American masculinity, but also of stoic endurance. He met his end with the same grit that defined the many cowboys, soldiers, and frontiersmen he portrayed. Wayne's death came at a time when America itself was reckoning with profound social and cultural shifts. The 1960s and 1970s had challenged many of the values Wayne seemed to embody: patriotism, individualism, traditional masculinity, and brought questions of civil rights, feminism, and anti-war sentiment to the forefront. Yet, to millions, Wayne remained an enduring icon of stability and strength, a reminder of an idealized American past. His death reflected a symbolic passing of that era, the sun setting on the age of simple moral certainties portrayed in classic westerns and war films. The immediate aftermath of his passing was marked by national mourning. President Jimmy Carter praised Wayne as a symbol of many of the qualities that made America great. Flags flew at half-staff in California, and tributes poured in from fans and colleagues alike. His funeral drew Hollywood legends and political figures, all honoring a man who had come to represent the American spirit, whether in celebration or controversy. Wayne's death undeniably amplified his legend. Though he had already received an Academy Award for True Grit in 1969, his passing prompted a wave of retrospectives that solidified his place in American cultural mythology. Monuments, film festivals, museums, and even an airport bearing his name continue to commemorate his legacy. His image, hat tilted, eyes squinting against the sun, remains etched into the collective memory of 20th century America. Ultimately, John Wayne's death invites reflection on how societies choose to remember their heroes. His life and passing reveal our deep need for archetypes, figures who embody national ideals, even when reality is more complex. Through film, public memory, and ongoing debate, Wayne has become more than a man. He is a lens through which America views its own identity, fears, and aspirations. In that sense, his story is not just about mortality, but about the immortality granted through myth. Françoise Hardy, the iconic French singer-songwriter, passed away on June 11, 2024, after a long and courageous battle with cancer. She was 80. Known for her ethereal voice, poetic lyrics, and striking beauty, Hardy's death marked the end of an era in French pop music and culture. Her passing was natural but deeply symbolic, as it came after years of declining health, which she faced with grace and stoicism. For decades, she had struggled with lymphoma and later throat cancer, which had robbed her of her ability to sing in her final years, a poignant tragedy for someone whose voice had once defined a generation. Hardy's death reflects the quiet dignity and introspection that characterized both her personal life and artistic legacy. Emerging in the 1960s as part of the Yay movement, a youthful, romantic genre of pop that swept across Europe, she became a symbol of modern femininity, elegance, and melancholic introspection during a time of cultural revolution. In contrast to the loud protests and political turmoil of the 1960s, Hardy offered an intimate, reflective voice that resonated with emotional complexity. Her graceful exit from public life in later years mirrored the understated, poetic qualities of her music. The immediate response to Hardy's death was a wave of national and international tributes. In France, artists, politicians, and fans alike mourned her as a national treasure. Social media was flooded with memories of her songs like Tous les garçons et les filles, which had become anthems of youthful longing and romantic solitude. French President Emmanuel Macron praised her as the voice of a generation, underlining her deep cultural impact. Her passing amplified her legacy, transforming her from a beloved artist into a mythic figure. Like Edith Piaf or Serge Gainsbourg before her, Hardy now belongs to that rare pantheon of French icons whose influence transcends time. Through film, literature, fashion, and music, she continues to inspire new generations. Her image, often solitary, eyes gazing into the distance, framed by a wind-blown fringe, has become immortal in the canon of European artistry. Hardy's death underscores the enduring connection between art, mortality, and memory. She reminds us that cultural power often lies not in spectacle, but in authenticity. In mourning her, we do not simply grieve a life lost. We celebrate a body of work that gave voice to human longing, vulnerability, and beauty. Through tribute albums, documentaries, and quiet echoes in modern music, Françoise Hardy remains forever present.
I put a lot of effort into researching and creating these stories every day. If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing, liking, and leaving a comment. Your support means a lot. Also, I recently opened channel memberships for those who want to support even more closely. Thank you for being here.
Ornette Coleman, the revolutionary jazz saxophonist and composer, died of cardiac arrest on June 11, 2015, at the age of 85. His death was natural, but it marked the end of one of the most radical and transformative voices in 20th century music. Coleman's passing symbolized not just the loss of a brilliant artist, but also the fading of an era defined by fearless experimentation and boundary-breaking innovation in the arts. Emerging in the late 1950s, Coleman challenged the rigid conventions of jazz with his concept of free jazz, a style that emphasized improvisation without the confines of traditional chord progressions and fixed rhythms. His 1959 album, The Shape of Jazz to Come, was more than prophetic. It was revolutionary. At a time when America was wrestling with conformity, segregation, and Cold War anxiety, Coleman's music offered a defiant freedom of expression that resonated with the cultural and political shifts of the era. Coleman's death came at a moment when jazz, once a dominant cultural force, had receded from the mainstream spotlight. Yet the values he represented, freedom, experimentation, and individuality, remained deeply relevant, especially in an age of digital music, global fusion, and renewed struggles for racial and artistic justice. His passing sparked tributes across the world, from jazz festivals to university departments, honoring him not only as a musical innovator, but as a philosophical thinker and artistic iconoclast. Though Coleman had already earned a Pulitzer Prize and a MacArthur Fellowship during his lifetime, his death solidified his position as one of the true giants of American music. In many ways, the removal of his living presence allowed a fuller appreciation of his legacy to blossom. His influence could be felt across genres, reaching classical composers, punk musicians, and avant-garde artists, demonstrating how deeply he had expanded the definition of what music could be. Reflecting on Coleman's death reminds us that mortality can paradoxically amplify a life's impact. His journey illustrates how power lies not just in technical mastery, but in the courage to defy convention. We immortalize figures like Coleman through ongoing reinterpretation of their work, scholarly analysis, tribute performances, and continued artistic rebellion. In every solo that breaks the mold, in every artist who dares to create without rules, Ornette Coleman lives on, eternal in sound, spirit, and memory. Anne Rutherford, beloved for her portrayal of Polly Benedict in the Andy Hardy film series, and for her role as Scarlett O'Hara's sister Corinne in Gone with the Wind, died of heart failure on June 11, 2012, at the age of 94. Her death, peaceful and natural, marked the passing of one of the last surviving links to Hollywood's golden age, a time defined by glamour, optimism, and tightly controlled studio systems. Rutherford's era valued wholesomeness and the American ideal, traits perfectly embodied in her most iconic roles. As Polly Benedict, she was the girl next door to Mickey Rooney's Andy Hardy. Films that comforted Depression-era audiences with their small-town simplicity and moral clarity. Her image was crafted during a time when the film industry was as much about shaping public morality as it was about entertainment. Her death, at a time when Hollywood had long shifted toward grittier, more fragmented storytelling, underscored a generational shift in cultural values, from innocence and idealism to complexity and realism. The immediate response to her passing was one of warm nostalgia. Though Rutherford had stepped away from acting decades earlier, she remained a cherished figure at fan conventions and retrospectives, particularly those surrounding Gone with the Wind. Her death prompted tributes from classic film enthusiasts, historians, and publications that recognized her as a symbol of an era long gone. While not as politically or culturally seismic as the deaths of global leaders or radical artists, Rutherford's passing still resonated because it marked the end of something irreplaceable, the golden sheen of early American cinema. Her death amplified her legend by reminding the world of the grace and charm of early Hollywood. Unlike many of her contemporaries, she managed to maintain both her dignity and a sense of personal privacy, becoming a symbol of enduring elegance. The lack of scandal surrounding her life and death allowed her legacy to remain unsullied, a rare occurrence in modern celebrity culture. Anne Rutherford's death speaks to the way society romanticizes the past and preserves cultural ideals through memory. We immortalize figures like her not just through their films, but through the ideals they represent: timelessness, grace, and a sense of comfort amid uncertainty. Her roles continue to live on in cinematic history, museum retrospectives, and the collective imagination of those who seek beauty and simplicity. David Brinkley, one of the most influential broadcast journalists in American history, died on June 11, 2003 at the age of 82 due to complications from a fall. His death, while natural in cause, marked the quiet end of an era in journalism defined by clarity, credibility, and a calm authority that stood in contrast to the fast-paced, often polarized media landscape of the early 21st century. Brinkley rose to national prominence in the 1950s and 1960s as co-anchor of the Huntley Report, an NBC evening news program that became iconic for its balanced tone and journalistic integrity. At a time when television was still emerging as a dominant medium, Brinkley's understated style and sharp wit captured the trust of millions of Americans. His work reflected the values of post-war America, a nation seeking reliable information, order, and a confident voice amid the turbulence of civil rights struggles, the Cold War, and Vietnam. His death came during a period of transformation in American media, as 24-hour news networks and internet reporting began reshaping how the public engaged with current events. The passing of such a respected figure prompted widespread reflection on the state of journalism and the growing divide between information and infotainment. Prominent journalists and political leaders alike praised Brinkley's legacy, emphasizing his commitment to facts, fairness, and the public good. Brinkley's death amplified his legend not through sensationalism, but through reverence. His dignified career stood as a benchmark for future generations of reporters, and his absence was felt as a loss of journalistic integrity in a rapidly shifting news environment. it was not just a personal loss, but a symbolic one, the closing of a chapter in which news anchors were among the most trusted individuals in American public life. In remembering Brinkley, we are reminded of humanity's desire to connect truth with voice and power with responsibility. He is immortalized through journalism awards, broadcast archives, and the continuing admiration of those who still seek news with substance. His calm presence in times of national crisis, from presidential assassinations to moon landings, left a mark not only on history, but on the very role of media in shaping public memory. Through retrospectives, documentaries, and the enduring quality of his reporting, David Brinkley's legacy lives on as a guiding light in the evolving story of American journalism. Ron Moody, the acclaimed British actor best known for his iconic portrayal of Fagin in the 1968 film adaptation of Oliver, died peacefully of natural causes on June 11, 2015, at the age of 91. His death marked the passing of one of the last great performers to bridge mid-20th century stagecraft with the evolving sensibilities of modern cinema. Though not marked by drama or tragedy, Moody's passing offered a moment of cultural reflection on the enduring power of character-driven storytelling and the theatrical tradition. Moody's career unfolded during a transformative period in British arts. The 1960s were an era of both social upheaval and artistic experimentation in Britain. As traditional class structures were questioned and new artistic movements gained momentum, Moody's Fagin stood as a complex symbol, a figure both comedic and tragic, steeped in Dickensian grit, but humanized by Moody's layered performance. His portrayal captivated audiences worldwide, earning him an Academy Award nomination and making Fagin a household name across generations. His death did not shift the political or historical course of a nation, but it did resonate deeply within the arts community. Tributes poured in from theater actors, film directors, and audiences who recalled not only Oliver, but Moody's broader legacy in Shakespearean theater, television, and voice work. His absence was a reminder of the dwindling generation of classically trained actors who valued craftsmanship, versatility, and longevity over celebrity. In many ways, Moody's death amplified his legend by allowing the spotlight to return to a body of work that had subtly influenced British performing arts for decades. His embodiment of morally ambiguous characters reflected a broader cultural willingness during his time to explore complex, multifaceted identities, a shift from the more rigid moral binaries of earlier cinema. Ron Moody's death invites reflection on the way we remember artists whose work is interwoven with iconic roles. We immortalize such figures not only through statues or biographies, but in the continual rewatching, reenacting, and reinterpretation of the characters they brought to life. Moody's Fagin lives on in school productions, musical revivals, and televised classics, preserving the actor's brilliance through the character he helped define. In doing so, his memory becomes part of a broader conversation about mortality, art, and the human need to tell and retell stories that transcend their time. Dusty Rhodes, affectionately known as the American Dream, died of natural causes on June 11, 2015, at the age of 69. His death was attributed to kidney failure following a fall at his home in Orlando, Florida. Though not violent or politically dramatic, Rhodes's passing deeply resonated within the world of professional wrestling, an industry he helped transform during its pivotal years in the 1970s and 1980s. His life and death echoed the era's celebration of working-class pride, resilience, and theatrical flair. Rhodes was a larger-than-life figure whose charisma and gritty persona symbolized the dreams of the everyday American. With his humble beginnings and everyman appeal, he became a counterpoint to the polished, muscle-bound icons dominating the ring. His death reminded fans of a bygone wrestling era, one driven by raw emotion, passionate promos, and heartfelt storytelling. In a world increasingly shaped by corporate branding and global entertainment empires like WWE, Rhodes's legacy served as a reminder of wrestling's more intimate, character-driven roots. The immediate reaction to his death was an outpouring of tributes from fans, wrestlers, and promoters alike. WWE, where Rhodes had spent his final years mentoring young talent in its NXT division, honored him with on-air memorials and video retrospectives. His passing left a significant void in the wrestling community, particularly among rising stars who had looked to him for guidance and inspiration. His influence lived on through the next generation of performers, including his sons, Dustin and Cody Rhodes, both of whom carried the family legacy into new eras. Dusty Rhodes's death amplified his legend. As the embodiment of the working-class hero, his career bridged the territory's era of professional wrestling with its globalized modern incarnation. His storytelling style, especially his iconic Hard Times promo, became a touchstone for authenticity in a scripted world. His passing speaks to a broader human truth: how we remember those who connect with our hopes, our struggles, and our need for heroes. Rhodes is immortalized not through statues or political history, but through his voice echoing in promos, his image etched in the memories of arena crowds, and his influence woven into the performances of those he mentored. In Dusty Rhodes, we see how legends endure, not just through spectacle, but through the sincerity of a dream lived and shared. Mala Powers, a prominent actress of the golden age of Hollywood, died of natural causes on June 11, 2007, in Burbank, California, at the age of 75. Her death was due to complications from leukemia, a disease she had battled quietly for some time. Powers' passing marked the end of a career that had once held great promise, but was also a reflection of an era when the careers of women in film were often constrained by health setbacks, typecasting, and shifting industry dynamics. Powers rose to fame in the early 1950s, earning critical acclaim for her portrayal of Roxanne in Cyrano de Bergerac, 1950, opposite José Ferrer. Her performance garnered a Golden Globe nomination and put her on the path to stardom. However, a nearly fatal illness, contracted during a USO tour in Korea, interrupted her momentum. The severe blood disease she contracted not only sidelined her career, but highlighted the physical and emotional demands placed on entertainers during the post-war period, especially women who sought both patriotic contribution and professional advancement. Her death, though not widely publicized compared to more mainstream celebrities, evoked reflection among classic film enthusiasts and acting communities. Powers was not only a performer, but also an educator and a literary executor for author Ida Lupino. Her devotion to storytelling extended beyond the screen and reflected a deep commitment to the arts during a time when many actors transitioned from fame into teaching and preservation of cultural legacies. While her passing did not shift historical currents, it did reinforce the often overlooked narratives of mid-century Hollywood actresses who contributed meaningfully to the cinematic arts, but were later overshadowed by more commercially enduring names. Powers' legacy lives on through the preservation of her work in classic film collections, academic studies, and the memories of students she mentored. In contemplating her death, we glimpse the broader human story: mortality as an inevitable closure to a life devoted to expression and resilience. Powers' journey reflects how memory, when not kept alive through spectacle, is nurtured in quiet reverence. Art, literature, and commemoration serve as vessels through which figures like Mala Powers endure, not as headlines, but as echoes in performance, pedagogy, and the continuing evolution of women's roles in entertainment. Through these mediums, even subdued stars continue to illuminate the fabric of cultural memory. DeForest Kelley, beloved for his portrayal of Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy in the original Star Trek television series and films, died on June 11, 1999, at the age of 79. He passed away in Woodland Hills, California, from stomach cancer, a natural cause that ended the life of a man whose work left an indelible mark on science fiction and popular culture. His death marked not only the loss of a cherished actor, but also symbolized the closing of a vital chapter in the original Star Trek legacy, one that had helped redefine television in the 1960s. Kelley's quiet passing stood in contrast to the enduring character he portrayed, the cantankerous yet compassionate ship's doctor aboard the USS Enterprise. As an actor, Kelley's work reflected a mid-20th century shift in television, where genre programming began to address philosophical and social issues. Star Trek challenged contemporary views on race, technology, war, and diplomacy, values deeply tied to the Cold War tensions and civil rights movements of the era. His death did not shake the geopolitical world, but it resonated deeply with a global fan base that saw Star Trek as more than entertainment. It was vision, hope, and a mirror to society. Kelley's portrayal of McCoy, often the emotional counterweight to Spock's logic and Kirk's boldness, became an anchor of humanism in a futuristic universe. With his passing, fans mourned not just an actor, but a symbol of empathy, morality, and reason. In the years following his death, tributes poured in from fellow cast members, fans, and creators who acknowledged his crucial role in shaping the soul of Star Trek. His legacy is preserved in convention speeches, fan art, novels, and continued appearances of McCoy's character in newer iterations of the franchise. Memorials included dedications in documentaries and online spaces where his influence continues to be discussed and celebrated. DeForest Kelley's death reminds us how powerfully fictional roles can reflect our real-world values, and how actors who embody those roles become more than performers. They become cultural icons. In remembering him, we see humanity's desire to preserve what is noble and inspiring. Through art, media, and collective memory, we ensure that such figures are never truly gone, but live on as beacons in the stories we continue to tell.